This is a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station.
7:48 a.m. You are listening to The Morning Run with Shazana and Xiao Ning. Now, a recent cyber attack on Malaysia Airports Holdings, or MAHB, has raised concerns about the security of critical infrastructure. Reports allege that the attack disrupted essential airport systems, including flight information displays, check-in counters, and baggage handling, which did lead to delays and operational challenges.
However, MAHB has refuted these claims, stating that the flight operations at KLIA remained unaffected and no passengers were stranded at the airport. Now, our Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim disclosed that the hackers had demanded a $10 million ransom, which the government refused to pay. Now, with cyber attacks becoming more frequent and complex, how can Malaysia enhance its cybersecurity measures? And what should businesses do to enhance cybersecurity resilience?
We're going to get some insights on this with CF Fong, Executive Chairman of LGMS Berhad, a company that specializes in cybersecurity services. CF, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us today. So the recent cyber attack on MAHB targeted critical airport systems. While operations were reportedly unaffected, what does this incident tell us about the cybersecurity risks faced by critical infrastructure like airports?
Well, this is a very important question because today hackers really don't distinguish about their targets. Nevertheless, critical national infrastructures are always a prime focus for the hackers because they also carry a very severe impact, in case of any successful attacks and exploitation. So for this incident, it shows that our government need to really beef up the effort in protecting critical national infrastructures. By right, we should not see successful cyber attacks happen on our critical national infrastructures anymore because we have been pushing a lot of initiatives over the years by the Malaysian government, and apparently we are still lagging behind. So this is a bit surprised to see that we are still falling prey to the cyber attacks.
So when a cyber attack like this happens, what are the procedures that organizations follow to contain and mitigate the impact?
During a cyber attack, the first thing that typically most of the people will overlook is because during a cyber attacks, our initial focus is to always restore operation back to normal, right? But nevertheless, in a proper way to handle a cyber security incident is to lock down first, to do a containment first, to ensure that all our precious information asset like our data and user records, customers' data, all of the data are protected first. And of course, there are a series of activities we can carry out. The cybersecurity has been very there's a lot of information available. So in terms of what are the correct procedures to follow, but I would say the first thing first for many organizations, the first thing is to do containment first. After the containment, then we do an evaluation to evaluate the extent and impact of the cyber attacks, and then only we start to do recovery.
Right. And I think preparation is really key. So how can critical infrastructure organizations improve cybersecurity resilience and ensure business continuity in anticipation of these kinds of attacks?
Many organizations today really overlook the importance of prevention. Cyber attacks today, successful cyber attacks happen because of lack of prevention. And based on our experience, many Malaysians, or not just Malaysians, many of us will still have the perceptions that hackers will only hack large organizations, hackers will only hack financial institutions, which in reality is no longer true. Because anyone today who has a website, an IP address, an email address are susceptible to cyber attacks. So I think the very important thing today is for any organizations, if you are to look into cybersecurity, the first thing first you need to look at is prevention. What are your prevention strategies? And where have you put in terms of prevention? What are the mechanisms in place that can help you to establish a strong prevention and assurance? Another thing is worth sharing is also like this. You see, when organizations are faced with ransomware attack, to professionals like us, we do not merely see it as a ransomware attack. Reasons being is that when the organization suffer a ransomware attack, it means the attackers could have been already infiltrated into the organizations for a period of time. Because the moment the hackers launch a ransomware attack, that is the moment they will expect you to respond. They will expect you to call in the experts to fix whatever problem there is, and they will expect you to start recovery, start your recovery process. Like the old saying is that prevention is always better than cure.
CF, are we investing enough in cybersecurity? I mean, how much should organizations and governments be spending to ensure adequate protection?
Well, in terms of investment, it's very subjective because good security practices can virtually cost free. The more important thing is for an organization, if they want to evaluate their security posture, first of all, they need to do it in a systematic and logical way by conducting security assessment, health checks. But in essence, security doesn't have to be expensive. We can start from very basic of good security practices, like, for instance, never use pirated software, for instance. Now, these kind of practices can be free. I mean, you do not have to really invest in any expensive technologies in order to do a security prevention. I think for the government and many organizations, the spending of cybersecurity should align with their business nature. They are, like, for example, an organization that is processing customers' data usually have to pay more attention into data protections versus a company that just having an online website. But it's very relative to the nature of business, the nature of the organizations when it comes to cybersecurity investment. But like I said before, I mean, security investment doesn't have to come in an expensive way. It can come from very basic and yet free.
So the government decided not to pay the $10 million ransom in this case. But beyond that, is Malaysia's national cybersecurity strategy strong enough to prevent and respond to such threats? Are there gaps in enforcement, funding, or coordination that really should be given attention?
Well, I think Malaysia, we have started some really good initiatives several years ago. Like, for example, we have published the cybersecurity guidelines, directions by NACSA, NSCSA, National Cybersecurity Agencies. We do have some really good practices, standards. But nevertheless, security is an ongoing matter. Non-stop evolution. Hackers will find new ways to attack almost at a daily basis, if not hourly basis. So we need to really catch up in a much faster pace. And this is very in contrast with many beliefs that, security is an IT problem. You treat cybersecurity as an IT problem, which in reality is no longer true. Cybersecurity is really a business survival problem. The moment we start slowing down or start slacking in catching up with the latest trend, that's the time we are faced with greater risk. Now, back to the government, not to pay the ransom. I think this is a wise move because during our course of business, we never ever recommend our client to pay ransom because there's no guarantee that once you pay the ransom, you get your data back. And furthermore, we do not support the act of terrorism. We do not support the act of ransom. That's why, it is wise for the government not to pay the ransom at all. I think right now, one of the biggest gaps we have noticed is that the execution of security protection in the public and private sectors are still weak. Many organizations, particularly from the private sectors, do realize that cybersecurity is important. But when it comes to execution, when it comes to investment, it is always a gap. There's always a slow delay. Because we always have mentality that hackers will not hack me, because I'm not a financial institution, I'm not someone important. But this concept has to change. We have to have a paradox shift to move away from that old concept because hackers really targeting everyone.
So, CF, what role should the government play in supporting organizations facing cyber threats? I mean, is there a dedicated cybersecurity agency providing this kind of assistance?
In theory, I think the government has agencies like NACSA to provide, from a governance standpoint, issuing best practices. I think more importantly, in terms of cybersecurity protection, every organization today, I'm particularly referring to private organizations, should be self-sustained first. That means should have a self initiative in terms of protection first. I mean, anything that comes from government maybe have a good options and a good secondary options. But then again, we still need to start from ourselves first.
Are there any international models or frameworks that Malaysia should adopt to strengthen cybersecurity resilience?
Yes, there are many international standards, like, for example, standards coming from National Institute of Technology from the US. There are ISO standard, ISO 27001. There are many good practices around. And I think Malaysian government is also advocating the acceptance, adoption of ISO 27001. But nevertheless, adopting a cybersecurity standard is one thing. I mean, executing cybersecurity strategies and implementing cybersecurity processes and procedures is another matter. So, I think what needs to be improved, particularly for the Malaysian government, is to pay more attention to prevention, establish good governance process in terms of vendor selections, vendors appointment, and also expertise, and also evaluate real expertise in order to assist the government.
CF, thanks as always for speaking with us. That was CF Fong, Executive Chairman of LGMS Berhad, talking to us how businesses and government can improve cybersecurity resilience in this age where we're seeing increasing number of cyber attacks.
Yeah, it's not only about money, but having a BCP plan right in place.
All right, 7:59 a.m. We're going to head into the 8 a.m. news bulletin. But after that, Wong Xiaoning, you'll be speaking to Lee Chi Keong, Executive Director of Sorrento Capital Berhad, on the Breakfast Grill. Stay tuned, BFM 89.9.
You have been listening to a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station. For more stories of the same kind, download the BFM app.